What does it mean to live a finite, fragile life in an infinite, eternal universe? It's a question that can send shivers down your spine, right? Or maybe fill you with profound wonder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the mind of someone who grapples with these very questions every single day. Professor Brian Cox.
That's right. We've compiled a whole load of sources, articles, interviews, research papers, his own notes really exploring the thinking of this, well, renowned physicist, musician, and truly one of the world's most popular science communicators.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission today is basically to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight. Cut through the noise and give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about the biggest questions in physics and, well, humanity's future.
So yeah, prepare for some surprising facts, maybe some engaging ideas, and perhaps even a few aha moments that will make you look at the world and, beyond in a completely new way. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
So let's unpack who Brian Cox is. I mean, beyond the basic facts, born in Oldham, England, 1968, what's really distinctive about his journey? Because before he became this, celebrated physicist, he took quite an unexpected detour, didn't he?
Oh, he certainly did, yeah. Many people might be surprised, actually, to learn he began as a musician, famously part of the band Ream, who had that massive hit, Things Can Only Get Better.
Right, I remember that.
And what's fascinating is how he playfully regrets that song title now from a scientific perspective.
Mm-hmm.
He often references the second law of thermodynamics.
Oh, right, the entropy thing, disorder increasing.
Exactly, which dictates that disorder tends to increase. So it's a great early indicator, really, of his unique blend of pop culture and, well, profound scientific thought.
A physicist regretting a pop song for its thermodynamic inaccuracy. That's just so perfectly Brian Cox, isn't it? It really highlights how his scientific mind is, like, always switched on, even playfully. So, from pop music, he pivoted into serious academia, became a professor of particle physics at the University of Manchester, and a Royal Society professor for public engagement in science. He points to early inspirations like The Sky at Night and Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time.
And that inspiration, you can see it clearly launched him into becoming this public face of science, unlike almost anyone else. His work is prolific. BBC Radio 4's The Infinite Monkey Cage, those fantastic wonders of TV series.
Wonders of the Solar System, Universe, Life, yeah.
Exactly. Plus the popular science books like Why Does EMC2 and The Quantum Universe. It isn't just about sharing scientific facts, though. It's about making the unimaginably vast feel accessible, blending those cutting-edge visuals with his signature mix of awe and really grounded scientific rigor.
And his live shows like Horizons, A 21st Century Space Odyssey, they really take that accessibility to another level, don't they? They're not just lectures. They're these immersive experiences using cutting-edge tech like Epic Games' Unreal Engine to build virtual worlds.
Yeah, and DNEG's black hole simulations, the same ones for the movie Interstellar.
Wow. So what does that commitment to such innovative communication tell us about Cox's philosophy of science outreach? And how does that link back to his own journey as a learner?
Well, he often puts his ability to explain complex ideas down to what he calls his own slow learning process. He quite openly shares that he got a D in maths for his A levels.
Really? A D?
Yeah. Which taught him, he says, the profound importance of practice and taking responsibility for your own learning. He genuinely believes very few people are naturally great at something. It's usually about putting in the hard yards, the consistent work.
Mm-hmm.
And that personal experience, you can see how it shapes his whole communication style. It helps him anticipate where others might get stuck. He constantly emphasizes honesty about what you don't know and, crucially, avoiding jargon.
That's such a powerful message, isn't it, for anyone trying to master something new, especially in science where, as Cox teaches, you're constantly learning and, well, unlearning. And that personal journey, even getting a D in maths, it seems to feed into his broader, satisfactory philosophy of ignorance.
Exactly that phrase, yeah.
Drawing on Richard Feynman, he sees science not as having all the answers, but as this process of being delighted when you're proven wrong, because it means you've learned something new.
Absolutely. That open-mindedness, that comfort with not having all the answers, it's just crucial to scientific progress. He acknowledges luck played a big role in his career, for sure, but he consistently stresses that when opportunities pop up, you have to be ready to work incredibly hard to grab them.
Right. Preparation meets opportunity.
Precisely. And this scientific approach, valuing doubt, recognizing complexity, accepting being wrong, he really believes it should be applied more broadly to societal challenges, even politics. He's famously stated, for example, regarding Brexit, that he's open to evidence that might contradict his initial position, for the good of the country. It's a real example of trying to apply scientific objectivity to human affairs.
So if we look at his personal reflections through that lens, what do they tell us about Brian Cox's worldview? He describes himself as having no personal faith, identifies as a humanist, lives in Battersea, London with his wife Gia Milinovich and their son, supports Oldham Athletic Football Club.
He does indeed.
Ultimately, despite all the scientific challenges he outlines, he seems optimistic about humanity's future. But, and it's a big but, he's deeply concerned about political polarization and the absolute need for global cooperation to face these shared challenges.
It's that exact blend, isn't it? Rigorous scientific thinking combined with these deeply human concerns. That's what makes his perspective so compelling, I think. He manages to hold the sheer vastness of the universe and the fragility of our little planet in the same thought.
And that compelling perspective really shines when he turns his gaze from the personal to the cosmic, doesn't it? Let's dive into how Brian Cox helps us grasp the unfolding cosmos. From the infinitesimally small to the unimaginably large, maybe starting with the quantum foundation of reality.
Yeah, okay. To truly appreciate the weirdness of quantum mechanics, he often points way back to Johannes Kepler's On the Six-Cornered Snowflake from 1610.
A book about snowflakes.
Exactly. Kepler showed this early genius in observing underlying natural symmetries, like the sixness of snowflakes. Cox highlights that Kepler intuitively felt this related to fundamental building blocks, a concept we now understand through quantum mechanics and the precise structure of the water molecule itself. It's a beautiful example of how deep scientific intuition can sometimes predate the formal theory.
That's fascinating. And then fast forward to 1900, Max Planck makes his famous quantum leap a moment. Brian Cox often highlights as the real beginning of our journey into the universe's most, counterintuitive secrets. What did Planck reveal that was so revolutionary?
Right. Planck's idea that hot objects emit light not continuously, but in these discrete packets or quanta. Cox emphasizes this wasn't just a minor tweak to classical physics. It was a fundamental shift. It forced us to abandon our classical intuitions and really paved the way for all of quantum theory.
Okay.
Then, building on that, in 1905, Albert Einstein provided this crucial explanation with the photoelectric effect. He showed why shining light on a metal only emits electrons above a certain frequency or color, regardless of how bright the light is.
So it wasn't about the intensity, but the type of light.
Precisely. Cox argues that Einstein profoundly proved that light itself behaves as particles, which we now call photons, with their energy tied directly to their frequency. This absolutely solidified the idea of light's quantum nature, not just its emission.
So we're talking about the bizarre reality of quantum particles, things like superposition, where an electron spin isn't just up or down. What does Brian Cox particularly highlight about this fundamental weirdness that really challenges our everyday intuition about how reality works?
Well, he constantly reminds us that this isn't just about our incomplete knowledge or some measurement problem. It's about the universe's fundamental, bizarre reality at the smallest scales. A quantum coin, or qubit as he explains it, isn't just heads or tails. It can exist in a superposition, a combination of both states simultaneously, like, say, 30% heads, 70% tails. It really is a fundamental property of how these tiny particles exist.
Wow. And this counterintuitive behavior is perhaps most famously shown by the classic double-slit experiment, which Cox loves to highlight, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's fundamental.
It reveals how particles, like electrons, somehow behave like waves, exploring all possible paths simultaneously and even interfering with themselves. He often explains this bizarre behavior where particles seem to explore every route at once using these clock faces, his way of visualizing the complex numbers that govern quantum probabilities. It's a core insight into how quantum mechanics fundamentally works.
And these seemingly abstract, totally mind-bending principles are now actually being harnessed in quantum computers. Two entangled qubits can have a vastly richer structure than classical bits. As Cox points out, a system of just 100 qubits can have 2 to the power of 100 possible configurations. That number, it's just astronomical. It far exceeds the number of atoms in the entire observable universe.
2 to the power of 100,
I
can't even picture that.
Nobody can, really. But this immense computational power allows quantum computers to perform calculations that are simply impossible for classical machines. It proves that quantum mechanics isn't just abstract theory. It's very real, it's applicable, and it's driving brand new technologies.
Okay, so if we zoom out now from the quantum world to the cosmic scale, we start encountering sizes and distances that truly defy human comprehension. Brian Cox frequently discusses what are called Planck units. What are these fundamental constants and why are they so significant, especially at the boundaries of our understanding?
Right, Planck units. Max Planck proposed these fundamental constants of nature, the speed of light,
Yeah.
see Newton's gravitational constant g, and his own Planck's constant h bar. You combine these, and they define fundamental units, like the Planck length, which is unimaginably small, 10 to the power of -35 meters.
Minus 35, that's tiny.
Ridiculously small. And the Planck mass, which is surprisingly about the mass of a grain of dust. What's fascinating is that the Planck length, for example, pops up in calculations about black holes. It suggests there might be these Planck-sized pixels kind of tiling the event horizon, hinting at a quantum nature of space-time itself. Though, this is really at the very edge of current understanding.
It's incredible how the universe seems to have these inherent scales kind of built into its fabric. And another remarkable quantum mechanical calculation Brian Cox often references is the Chandrasekhar limit. What does this reveal about how the laws of the very small impact the very, very large?
It's a stunning demonstration of quantum mechanics' predictive power, really.
Yeah.
Using these fundamental constants, the Chandrasekhar limit calculates the maximum mass a star can have. It works out to about 1.4 times the mass of our sun before its internal quantum electron pressure just gives way to gravity.
I know.
And then it leads to an unstoppable collapse into a black hole. So it's this beautiful example of how abstract physics, born from understanding tiny particles, can predict these enormous observable cosmic phenomena across unimaginable distances.
It truly shows how the tiny affects the enormous. But our human minds really struggle with these extreme scales, don't they? Let's maybe try to put some of these distances into perspective. We start local. Earth to the moon is about 250,000 miles. Okay, I can kind of picture that.
Yes, you can sort of grasp that. But then consider our solar system. Earth to the sun is about 93 million miles. A million Earths could fit inside the sun, and flying around it in a passenger jet would take roughly a year.
A whole year.
Yeah. And the Voyager 1 spacecraft, our furthest human-made object, is currently 150 times the Earth-Sun distance. Light takes over 22 hours to reach it from the sun, and the sun's gravitational influence, the Oort cloud, that stretches out about 1 light year.
Okay, 1 light year. That's the distance light travels in a year, 186,000 miles per second for an entire year. It's genuinely mind-boggling, isn't it? I mean, how do we even begin to grasp these interstellar and galactic scales? What analogies does Cox use to help us wrap our heads around something so vast?
He tries to help by highlighting the sheer passage of time involved and the relative emptiness of space. The nearest star to us, Proxima Centauri, is about 4 light years away. That's 4 years for its light to reach us.
4 years at light speed?
Yeah. Our own Milky Way galaxy contains maybe 200 to 400 billion stars, and it's about 100,000 light years across. So if you could travel across it at the speed of light, it would take you 100,000 years.
100,000 years. And if we look beyond our galaxy, the nearest large galaxy, Andromeda, that's 2.5 million light years away. You said this means the light entering our eyes from Andromeda began its journey before humans even evolved on Earth.
That's right. Think about that. The light hitting your retina right now started traveling towards you long before Homo sapiens existed.
Wow.
And the observable universe, the furthest we can possibly see with telescopes like James Webb, it stretches back to light that has journeyed for over 13 billion years, giving us a current observable radius, diameter, of about 93 billion light years across. And the universe itself, it might actually be infinite.
It's humbling, isn't it? And as Cox often says, it really puts our immediate concerns into a truly cosmic context.
Absolutely.
That genuinely is inconceivable. It puts our place into perspective. Or maybe it challenges our perspective. So how do we fit into this impossibly vast universe? This raises that big question. What is humanity's place, our purpose, our potential? Cosmology forces us to confront our physical insignificance.
It does. Yet, paradoxically, pictures like Earthrise from Apollo 8, taken actually on Brian Cox's very first Christmas Eve, those images made the Earth seem more valuable and fragile than ever before. They profoundly inspired the environmental movement.
Right, seeing it from the outside.
Exactly. Astronaut Frank Borman, who took that famous photo, said looking back at Earth from the moon, something like, all those differences in nationalistic traits are pretty well going to blend, and you're going to get a concept that maybe this really is one world, and why the hell can't we learn to live together like decent people? It's a really powerful and kind of unexpected outcome of venturing out into space.
That's a profound thought. Brian Cox frequently talks about Earth as an island of meaning. We are physically insignificant, these little specks of just a collection of atoms on one mote of dust, yet he points out that we are atoms that can contemplate atoms. And he says, quite profoundly, that without life, the universe is by definition meaningless. What's the significance of that statement coming from a physicist?
Well, he's not suggesting a spiritual meaning. I don't think it's more an experiential one. From a purely scientific standpoint, without consciousness there to observe, measure, and understand, the universe just is. That doesn't inherently mean anything.
Okay.
And this leads him into a deep dive into what's known as the rare civilization hypothesis, often called the Great Silence. The idea is, while life appeared relatively quickly on Earth maybe 4 billion years ago, once conditions allowed, which suggest simple microbial life might be quite common out there.
Right, bacteria and things like that.
Exactly. But the bottleneck seems to be the emergence of complexity.
So he argues that it took something like 3.5 billion years for complex, multicellular life to appear here on Earth. Events like the origin of the eukaryotic cell, that's the cell type we're made of, about 2.5 billion years ago, seem like these highly improbable, maybe unique, fateful encounters. Without them, complex life, and therefore human civilization, simply wouldn't exist.
Precisely. And this leads to the hypothesis that while microbes might be everywhere, intelligent civilizations could be incredibly rare.
Yeah.
One biologist friend of his apparently suggested it might leave us with, at best, only slime in our galaxy.
Only slime! Wow.
And the Fermi paradox. Why haven't we seen any evidence of aliens given the vastness of the cosmos? But it offers potential explanations. Cox considers the biological filter, meaning complex life is exceptionally rare, maybe we are unique, at least in our galaxy. Or, the more sobering possibility, he also considers the great stupidity, the idea that civilizations might tend to self-destruct through things like resource depletion, environmental damage, nuclear weapons, basically before they become truly spacefaring and detectable.
Right. We wipe ourselves out first.
That's the worry.
And this brings us to what Brian Cox calls our galactic responsibility. If Earth really is the only island of meaning in this vast sea of 400 billion stars, then he argues humanity has a tremendous responsibility to protect it, to ensure the perpetuation of meaning in the galaxy. He believes our actions here right now will have ramifications far beyond our planet. It sort of redefines our purpose, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And you can see how this redefinition informs his views on our future in space. We are, he says, genuinely on the verge of becoming a multiplanetary civilization. There's been this unprecedented revolution in engineering, especially over the last decade, particularly with reusable rockets from companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin.
Right, that's changed the game.
Completely. It's made access to Earth orbit significantly cheaper.
So that technological revolution with reusable rockets isn't just big, it completely redefines our access to space. What are the immediate and maybe longer-term implications that Cox sees for humanity with this shift?
Well, he highlights that we are effectively industrializing the space just a few hundred miles above our heads and at an ever-increasing rate. Soon, we won't have just one space station like the ISS, but multiple stations. For scientific research, sure, but also commercial ventures. And space tourism will become much more prevalent, he thinks.
Okay.
And this revolution, this infrastructure, it opens up opportunities far beyond Earth orbit. Take asteroid mining, for example. There are vast, effectively unlimited resources locked up in near-Earth asteroids. Harnessing those could potentially alleviate Earth's resource competition and environmental stress, allowing civilization to grow without further damaging our home planet.
And colonization. Mars, the moon.
He sees building cities on Mars and the moon as genuinely within reach technologically now.
But this expansion, it must also bring significant new challenges, right? What are the key hurdles that Cox foresees with this kind of cosmic migration?
Oh, definitely. He emphasizes the critical need for international regulatory frameworks, particularly for space traffic control. Imagine managing potential conflicts between thousands, maybe tens of thousands, of satellites and other space objects. These are global challenges that truly require unprecedented global cooperation. He views these as extensions of that great stupidity problem. Can we cooperate globally to manage this new frontier, or will we mess it up?
Yeah, can we avoid conflict in space when we struggle down here?
That's the question.
And here's where it gets really speculative, kind of tying back to that idea of life bringing meaning to the universe. Cox delves into the idea, championed by thinkers like David Deutsch and also John Barrow and Frank Tipler, that life might not remain cosmically insignificant forever. What's the profound potential he envisions here?
Well, it's pretty far out there, but he suggests that if a civilization becomes sufficiently persistent and technologically powerful, it could theoretically start to influence structures larger than just planets or solar systems,
Hmm?
maybe even entire galaxies eventually.
Influencing galaxies.
Yeah. And the extreme concept of omega point cosmology, which he touches on, suggests that life in a potentially recollapsing universe could even manipulate the final collapse itself to achieve infinite information processing and effectively become immortal. It highlights this profound, almost unimaginable potential for life to impact the universe's far, far future, pushing the very boundaries of what meaning could achieve on a cosmic scale.
Wow. Okay. We've traversed an absolutely incredible range of Brian Cox's insights today, from the bizarre reality of quantum particles exploring all paths simultaneously to the immense mind-bending distances of the universe, and finally to our paradoxical place within it, physically tiny, yet potentially uniquely meaningful.
Yeah, and Brian Cox's work, I think, consistently highlights humanity's unique capacity, our ability to understand, to question, and crucially, to find meaning in the universe. And he argues this rare ability gives us a profound galactic responsibility to foster a future where this meaning can persist and maybe even expand.